Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Gabriel Talks Football. And I just want to let you know that this is starting to heat up. We've got a lot of Bears draft coverage over the next 2 weeks. And tonight, a very special AA team with Stephen Nagishi. He's going to have on a guest from Pro Football Focus, and they will be talking about the Bears' needs and some of the analytics PFF can provide teams and looking at players. So we'll have that on tonight. And then after that, of course, it's White Sox, South Burbs Hitman, our hit White Sox show. And then tomorrow, Dan and all the Bear Their Souls will be talking a lot about the draft and among other things. And the rest of the week will be loaded with draft stuff. And then next week, oh boy, we got day-to-day coverage of the draft, and it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Let people know what we're doing here at the Barroom Network, and let people know that Greg Gabriel is a part of the bar room, and there he is. Greg, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You look good. Did you work out today?
Absolutely.
Religiously, right?
Yep.
Well, how was your Easter, by the way?
It was good.
Good.
I hope yours was. Had
Mine?
a nice meal over at our son's house and with the grandkids, some of the grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
It would be impossible to get them all together. There's a dozen grandkids, so
Woo-hoo.
spread all over.
Yeah, one of these days that'd be nice. A nice picture with all 12 grandchildren. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but I'd hate to have to pay the food bill.
Grandfathers don't do that. Grandparents don't do that.
You want to bet?
Uh-oh. I'm going to be a grandparent in a few months here, so I have to start saving.
I've always said this. Being a grandparent, it's more expensive than having your own kids.
Oh, jeez. And I thought all my expenses were over with both kids out of the house. Not to be. All right, everybody. We are going to talk defensive linemen and linebackers. And I wanted to start off with a couple of general questions. In this defense, we've heard a lot about the importance of the three tech. And so for those who may not be familiar what that position is and does, can you provide us with a quick explanation, please?
Well, I mean, first of all, as compared to the scheme they played last year, it's entirely different. Now, the 3-4 that the Bears have played since Vic Fangio was here is really more of a one-gap 3-4. They don't do it's not the old-fashioned 3-4 where they do a lot of two-gapping, and you have guys like we had here with Dick Duran, even though that was a four-man front, they had three-man front three-man front tendencies, doing a lot of two-gapping. So, but still, this is a penetrating defense. The three technique is supposed to create havoc, get penetration, disrupt the run game, be a good interior pass rusher. And you have three keys to this defense. Now, that's a little different between Lovey and Coach Flus. Lovey said, most important guy is your three technique, then your will linebacker, and then your safety, and Flus is the three technique, the will linebacker, and the nickel corner. So, and that's really part of that is the change of the game. Since Lovey came here in 2004, nickel is really your base defense now. Mm-hmm. You're playing 80% of the time you're playing in nickel, and sometimes more than that, because you're playing against three wide so often.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so I have been wrestling with that whole, who do you pick? And, the prevailing thought is going to be offensive line, cornerback, and wide receiver with the first three picks. But, man, every time I do a mock draft lately, there's a defensive lineman, a three-tech lineman, and there aren't many, as you've told me, out there. And I just am tempted to grab one of those guys on day two. What's your feeling on that?
I think it depends on how it falls. You cannot under any circumstances force a pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now every board is different. Chicago Bears board is going to be different than the Indianapolis Colts, and the Indianapolis Colts is going to be different than the New York Giants, and so on around the league. Nobody has now. Maybe in the top 3 rounds, a lot of the names are the same, but how you have them stacked are totally different.
Right.
And when you get after that, there's going to be guys who teams have a 4th round grade, maybe even a late 3rd round grade, that are going to be free agents on another board. It's the way you look at the player, how he fits within your scheme. That's what makes the draft so much fun, because everybody thinks they had a great draft the day, the Monday after the draft or the Sunday after the draft, and you or I could look at it and say, I don't like his, I don't like his, I like that one, because that's based on what you saw,
right?
Okay, or what your opinion is, but you got to go back and you look at it later and you find out, hey, you know what, they're right. But so as long as they play well within that scheme, that's fine.
Yeah. And in terms of trading down, so I've been playing with scenarios where, you've got these 2 picks in the 2nd round. And so the inclination is, well, let me trade one of them down and pick up a couple of picks, that could help address all of the various needs, because there are a lot of needs on this team. How comfortable are you with trading down, let's say the number 39 pick, the first pick of the 2nd round, because obviously that will have the most value? How comfortable are you making a deal for that pick, and sort of what would you expect in return? Are you expecting another day 2 pick and a day 3 pick? Is it that simple?
Well, you're making a complicated thing sound simple. And
that's rare.
All, you can't trade down unless you got somebody wanting to trade up. Okay, you got to have a partner. And most of these discussions will happen next week. Now, yeah, you had the trade a few weeks ago with New Orleans and Philly, in the 1st round. That does not happen that often. Most of the time, you're getting discussions, and like when I was involved, and it still happens. Draft starts Thursday, so around Monday, you start picking up the phone and you start saying, hey, look at guy we're looking at might not be there. If he's not there, we might be willing to move our pick. Just want to let you know. And if you're interested, give us a call. In this case, it would be Friday, because it's day 2. Bears don't have a day 1 pick. So you go back, you set in your mind how far back you want to go based on your board. You're not just doing this without giving it a thought process. You're saying, okay, look, let's draw the line at 44 or something like that, or 45. And, we'll trade, but we don't want to go below that, because we want to keep a certain level of player. And we believe we can get that level of player if we don't go below this spot. So that's basically what happens. And the same thing with, the other 2nd round pick and the 3rd round pick. But again, and I emphasize this, you can't make a deal unless there's another team that wants it. And who the hell are you looking at? Because there might be a player that they got rated as a 1st round pick. Let's say they got a guy that's, 22nd, 23rd rated player on their board that's sitting there when they pick at 39. And that's entirely possible. I mean, because of the difference in how teams set their board. So then you say, well, I'm not going to trade. That guy's too good for me to trade. So you're not going to know if you really until not when you're on the clock, but you're going to get a feeling after the 1st round. First of all, you know what's left. You got 32 guys off the board. So now, you're picking, 39. So you're picking 7th and 14th, I think, or 7th and 16th in the 2nd round. You got an idea. Your board's been set. You got an idea who's there, and what are your chances of getting them if you stay versus if you trade down. And then, obviously you got a needs list that you want to take care of, which brings up a whole, different scenario. Thought until recently, going into this thing that they might sign a few more veterans, especially because they've got a mini camp starting tomorrow.
Right.
And they brought in O'Shaughnessy and they signed him. The only guy they really haven't signed that they brought in was the linebacker Hitchens, who played for Kansas City. Mm-hmm. He's probably looking for some pretty big money still, because he made good money in Kansas City last year. So that's a guy that if you get him, it's going to be a while, because he's still going to try to get the best money he can. And right now, the Bears are in this thing. I'm giving you a 1-year deal and that's it. Now, maybe in a case like that where Poles knows Hitchens really well, you might go 2 years or something. But, you're not going to go a lot more than that. My thinking is now, with this mini camp, in mini camp versus OTAs and mini camps are very similar, but versus off-season program stuff, when you go out on the field, we call it, a lot of times you call it class on grass. You don't have offense versus defense. You got the offense working at one side, defense is working at one side, and you're doing some stuff as team, offensive team or defensive team, but never offense versus defense, defensive backs against wide receivers, etc. Doesn't happen. During minicamp, it does. During OTAs, it does. And so this will be the first opportunity for the coaches to really get a feel for what they have. And I think that's going to be important leading into next week, because they're going to come away and say, you know what, this guy's okay. I need better here. And now with the offensive line, it's going to be tough because there's theoretically no contact. Okay, but you get a feeling for the guy's movement skills, his ability to pick up the assignments, that type of thing. You're just not seeing him live. But with the DBs and wide receivers, hey, they're going to see one-on-ones, and you're going to see 7-on-7. And you're going to get a pretty good feel for what you got. And same with the linebackers, what you got at those positions at the end of the 3 days. And I think you're going to come out of that and say, we got to get a guy here. We got to get a guy here somewhere in the draft. So the thinking might be totally different than it is today on Monday when they wrap this thing up on Thursday. So even though most teams won't finalize the board till near the end of this week,
okay,
the Bears might already be there. Now I'm throwing a dart at the wall,
sure,
but they may already be there because of the mini camp.
Okay,
you're going to have, your coaches are going to be involved. Obviously, the front office is going to be involved watching practice. It's 90 minutes to 2-hour practice, going to be going on 3 days a week. So that's time you're not spending in meetings. Now, will you meet? Yes, but you still got to have that full bout of the practices, and I'm sure that Ryan is going to have the scouts. Not only the coaches are going to be looking at their positions, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he assigns scouts to certain positions to say, give me an opinion on these guys at the end of the 3 days. So very, very important leading into the process next week. That's not always the case. It's because you got a new coach this year that you're able to do that. So it ends up being a positive. So what they're thinking as far as doing in the draft could totally change between now and Thursday night.
So based on what you're saying, how much can we hope for that Bears brass is going to get a pretty good idea of what those two young offensive linemen going into their second year, Larry Borum and Tevin Jenkins, how much can we hope that they are going to learn about these guys next week or at the end of this week?
How smart they are picking up the assignments, learn and retain ability, athleticism, Are they physically capable of doing the job that you're asking them to do?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find that out.
Okay.
Okay. Now, obviously, you're not going live, but there's a lot of things you can find out just from watching them move around in practice.
Okay.
So that part's important.
Yeah.
It's just you're not going to get as much out of the offensive and defensive line as you'd get out of the skill people.
Right. And Chris Watts asks, do you think we'll be sorting out the left tackle position in the draft? Which I think is a good question, because let's face it, free agency, there's crumbs left. There's players who have had injury histories or players who might be out of the price tag. I'm thinking of Dwayne Brown. So do you think if they decide there's not a left tackle and a good backup left tackle already on the squad, then they're going to draft a left tackle, aren't they?
Yeah, but again, they're probably going into tomorrow's practice saying, I'm not sure if I got one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Thursday night, they're going to say, you know what, I feel pretty good, or we got to get one. Now you can also, I mean, they could turn around and sign. There will be, I guarantee you, there'll be some people in on a tryout basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they could sign or not sign them. You're allowed to do that in these mini camps. But with the veterans on the street, I think the thinking is now that there's two ways to look at this. You could say, okay, I could sign a guy today, this week or whatever, before the draft, and then I got it taken care of and I don't have to worry about it next week. Or you can do it just the opposite. I'm going to take the best guys I can next week and then fill in the holes with the veterans that are still on the street. Now, as far as the compensatory selections with free agency, mm-hmm. that's done next Monday. Not next Monday, the Monday after the draft. So 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
That at the end of business on that Monday, it's closed, and any veteran you sign does not work against the formula for compensatory picks.
Great. All right, let's get into our draft evaluations, and let's go over to that defensive line. I'm going to start with this particular player because every time I see him on tape, I'm so impressed. He reminds me of the defensive tackle for the Indianapolis Colts. It's Logan Hall. Now, a lot of people are saying that he's a tweener. We don't know if he's going to play defensive end, defensive tackle, or what. Your thoughts on the 6'6", 275-pounder out of Houston?
I think that weight they had was wrong. He's 285.
Okay.
And then I know he was 285 at the pro day. Yeah, there is some tweener. He's got to fill out. Very, very good athlete. His length, 32 3/4. If you're playing defensive end, it might be a little concern. Playing inside, not a concern at all. He is strong, but he doesn't, he's not a big butt, big ass guy that, so anchoring, he's got to get stronger and more powerful in the lower body to anchor in the run game. I think I like the way this guy plays. He's quick off the ball. He finds the ball. He's got good instincts. He knows how to use his hands. He's got an all-out motor. All that stuff is good. But because he's lacking a little size and a little power in the lower body, as a rookie, you might not see him as much on first down. Mm-hmm. And that you're going to see him more as a second and third down player, which is fine because Flus wants to rotate his defensive linemen anyway. There's going to be 8 defensive linemen playing every week, or at least 7. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, I think he's a definite fit. I like him. He's he seems more like a 5 tech. No, he's not. He's too small to be a 5 tech and a 30 front. He doesn't. You want a guy well over 300 pounds. Usually, in that case, this guy he's a good player, just not quite big enough. Would I take him if he's there? Put it this way: he's going to be if he's there, he's in the discussion. But that discussion is taking place now. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, you're saying, okay, we're looking at this guy, and this guy. Which one are we going to take? You're not worrying about that next Friday. You're worrying about it now and doing it now and going through all those scenarios. And then they're going to say, okay, if I'm looking at player A versus player B, which one's first, which one's second?
Mm-hmm. He's one of the players that when I read up on him from various voices, legitimate people whose opinions I respect, it's like they have him. It's hard to place him immediately in a position. It's almost as you have to have the absolute right scheme for him, according to some people.
I don't disagree with that. I think he's got to be with the right team, and this is one of the teams. There's not a doubt in my mind he can play the three.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's played the three
right
at Houston, and to me the ideal three is Tommy Harris, and Tommy Harris is 6'2.5". This guy's obviously a lot bigger, but Buckner in Indianapolis is 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and he's a great three. I mean, but he's also a lot bigger. He's got to have 20, 25 pounds on this guy, and a lot of lower body power. But this guy, in time, he's still a youngster. He's going to get bigger and stronger in the lower body, and he's going to be a good player. So yeah, I mean, if he's there, you're going to think about it. Now, like I said, these decisions are being made now. They're not being made while you're on the clock. and so, if they pass on, it's because they see another guy that they end up taking as a better, not necessarily a better fit, but a better player overall than that guy.
Well, yeah, and it's
the two has to do with the depth at the position, but with your top pick, you want to get a guy that's gonna come in and play. Now they signed Jones, and they gave Jones some pretty good money to play the three, and there's not a doubt in my mind Mario Edwards can play the three.
Yeah, and play it well. Yeah,
and I think he could play it well. So it's. Is it as big a need as a lot of people think? In my mind, no. But if the right guy's there, yeah, then you pull the trigger because, you can't say he's too good to pass up.
Right. And who is it? Jordan says that if he's there at 39 without discussion, he would probably be his 39th pick, barring somebody like Linderbaum falling, which is
don't even get me going about Linderbaum. I'm not as big a fan as a lot of people are.
Tell me why.
Number one, he's got 31-inch arms.
Yeah,
he'd have the shortest arms of any center in the National Football League. And I think he's a good player. There's no question. But I see him more as and he could probably play in the zone scheme. But don't forget, they gave a bunch of money to Patrick to play center.
Yeah.
Not play guard.
Right.
So, I don't want to hear, the guy's a good player. No question he's a good player. He's going to play in the league. But to me, he's overrated some. Length to me is huge at certain positions, and that's one of them. Now, Olin, in fact, I was on Olin's podcast last week, and we were talking about that. And I said, Olin, they had you at 31.5, and I guarantee you, if I measured your arms right now, they're longer. Because that was, 98 when he came out or something like that, and 99, and they weren't as precise then as they are now. And you've seen that. I've showed you some of the pro day stuff where the difference between the combine and the pro day is sometimes 3/4 of an inch. It's got to be done right. I can't tell you that, I've been around Olin for a long time, and I know he's got longer than 31.5-inch arms.
Jordan wants to debate you on this. He says, what's a pulling zone center who's an ass kicker in the run game worth? And what do you think about?
Yeah, but he's got to be also. Don't forget they're going to be playing odd fronts, and he's got to be going against a 350-pound nose tackle. Not everybody they're playing is going to be in an even front. So you're looking at the matchups. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion. That's fine.
Mhm.
I'm not as high on him as other people are. I hope, you know what? He's the type of guy, I hope he goes.
Mhm. You hope that, yeah, exactly. That makes another player available for us.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on with our evaluation. Marvin Liao is next. He is from Texas A&M. Here's a guy that got a lot of offers when he was coming out of high school. There are some discipline issues with him, and he was arrested for possession of marijuana, less than a couple of ounces, according to the folks over at The Athletic. He had a bunch of undisciplined penalties on his 2021 tape, but the guy can play. The guy can play. What do you think?
Well, first of all, he's a defensive lineman, and when you take a defensive lineman, part of it is, they got a little crap in their neck. It goes with the territory, okay? It's not like offensive linemen. You're going to, don't forget, definition of a defensive lineman is a thug. Okay, so
break the law and get the quarterback.
They're not nice guys. I'll tell you, there's things. He's got pretty good tape. There's things when you look at the measurables that I don't like. I mean, he's 6'3", so 6'4", 290 pounds, which is fine. He's got arms a little over 33 inches. He ran a 5 flat. As a 3 tech, you'd want a little bit better than that. Yeah. Expect that to be. Tommy was about a 4.85 type guy. But here's the part I didn't like. The broad jump was good, 9.10, but he only had a 27.5 vertical. That showed like his explosiveness isn't exactly where you want it, but his shuttles for a big guy were excellent. 4.49 for the 20 shuttle, 7.20 for the 3 cone. 7.20 for a big guy is excellent. And then the 3 cone, you obviously got 5 sharp changes of directions in a couple seconds, and so it's tough to do. He was an early entry. He has started since his freshman year. He's played everywhere across the front. He's very quick off the ball. He does play with explosiveness, and so that contradicts the 27.5. He's usually the first guy off the ball. He can be disruptive. He's got good pass rush ability from both the inside and the outside. Actually, I compared him a little bit to Tommy Harris, but not quite in the same league, like a poor man's Tommy Harris type guy. He's not a fit for every type of scheme. He is a fit for this scheme. But here's another measurable number that really, really scared me. His bench was only 17. What the hell's he been doing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's poor. That means, I'll tell you what that means he's benching? He's only benching about 340 pounds, 335 pounds.
That's not good.
Right. And so, I've been in the A&M weight room. It's not like it's not. So now some people just aren't good at benching. Cody Whitehair did not have a good bench. You can't say he doesn't play strong.
Yeah.
And your power does come from your lower body, but to me, it's a red flag, and you got to find out why.
Yeah. Interesting. He's dropping a little on my list of players to acquire. Intriguing candidate, though, because he's got
But I think he's a second to third round type of guy. So he's going to be there. He could even be there in the third round. Probably 50-50 if he's there in the third. Like I said, he's not a fit for every scheme. But in this scheme, he can play and he can be a good player. But you got to dig into the background and find out about the work habits. See, I can look at all the tape I want. You can look at all the tape you want. You're not going to know about his football character unless you make a school call.
Okay.
Or you call up people that know what the hell they're talking about, who have made school calls.
Right. And the marijuana busts aren't as big a deal as, it used to be. Of course, a lot of these guys, take that stuff for pain relief. But it is against
Okay.
but it is against the rules. And so here's an interesting quote from an area scout for an NFC team. He told the NFL.com this: the tape didn't match the hype he had going into the season. You never really feel for him on tape like you should for a top player. You get a similar vibe from that area scout?
I don't disagree with that, because he does run hot and cold. Now, there's times, now Fliss has got this thing with loaf plays.
Yeah. Right.
Well, he has some plays that you could say are loaf plays where he's not, where you never see that from the Houston kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's all out every play. This kid, not quite the same thing. So, but you know what? They start earning a paycheck. They learn how to play harder. They know they're not going to be getting that paycheck.
Mm-hmm. All right. Our next guy is a player who grew up locally. He grew up in the Chicago area, went to Plainfield High School. It's Perion Winfrey out of Oklahoma. Take it away.
Yeah. I'm not as high as a lot of people are. A lot of draft enthusiasts are. And often it's the case where they look at a guy and they see he does good at the Senior Bowl and they get all excited. The Senior Bowl tape and the tape from Oklahoma are two different things. I don't see as I like them. I don't love them. I made some calls. I called 3 different people to find out. I said to one guy, I said, is there some issues with his football character? And personal character, fine. I'm talking football character, work ethic, love for the game, passion, those types of things. And his reply was, he's a typical JC kid. And why did he go to JC to begin with? And so he's got a little lazy in him sometimes. I don't think he finds the ball. There's too many times on tape when the ball's going one way and he's going another. Now, granted, some people say, well, it's what they were asking him to do at Oklahoma. Hey, instincts are instincts. And he's more of a reactor than and when we get to linebackers, I'll talk about that more. But he's got to see it and then he reacts versus anticipates. He has some good plays. He flashes. I just don't see it down after down. Would I take him later? Yeah, but he's a guy, because of the hype, you probably got to get in the second round. I wouldn't touch him in the second round myself.
Yeah, it's interesting, regarding that Senior Bowl tape, because I was able to take a look at some of that practice tape, and he dominated. And
he played good. There's no question.
Yeah,
but you know what you see in that stuff? You're seeing one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, big deal. First of all, the one-on-ones are geared for the defensive line.
Right.
And if he can't get himself hyped up to win those battles, then you know something wrong. Another guy I talked to said this. He goes, he's just not wired right.
Well,
so
that's a concern.
In other words, I've got concerns.
Yeah.
So, and my concerns are, I'm not going to take them where you might have to take them, and that's me. If they want to take him, I hope he turns out to be a great player.
Yeah.
But I'm not totally sold on him.
Yeah, well, and that's what this new administration has talked about, that they want players who love the game of football. And if somebody is using words like not wired right, then that's concerning. Maybe his love of the game isn't there, or maybe he just has so many other interests that it prevents him from playing consistently well at a high level.
Well, here's another thing, Aldo, is that at Oklahoma they rotate the defensive linemen.
Right.
So they never really play more than 50 to 60% of the snaps. Okay, so when you're getting that much rest, there's no reason not to go balls out every down you're in there. because they might play like 3 or 4 downs in a row and then they're swapping them out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're in there every down on a 10 down drive.
Right.
So you've got no excuse not to go all out every single play.
The Athletic says that his backfield production, he had 40% of his tackles occurring in the backfield, which is an outstanding number, but that may leave out other numbers like how many missed tackles and why did people get by him?
No, I don't have a problem with his tackling ability. I just, the motor, the instincts, the not finding the ball all the time or knowing where the ball is, that just, it's little things. And it's little things that through the years that I've seen, they just, the button goes off or the buzzer goes off in my head when I see stuff like that. And then I downgrade guys.
Jay Sanders asked, not wired right. Can you be more specific? This person who you
that is a exact quote from a guy. Well, what it means is that, he just not totally into it the way you want a top football player to be. There might be some outside trash, so to speak. It's just, he's not all in.
Mule says that you're being nice. Winfrey just takes place off. All right, let us move on. Here's an interesting guy, Eric Johnson from Missouri State. Eric Johnson is about 300 pounds, and he's another guy that grew up outside of Chicago. He's the guy that went to Plainfield. My bad. Perry and Winfrey went to West Chicago and played at Lake Park High in Roselle. Eric Johnson grew up outside of Chicago and attended Plainfield High School. What are your thoughts on him?
He's at his pro day ran in the 4.9s, I think. He's pretty athletic. I watched 3 games. They played one against a Division I school that I saw, Oklahoma State. I saw the Sam Houston game. I saw the North Dakota State game. North Dakota State and Sam Houston are 2 of the elite FCS level teams. And obviously Oklahoma State's a pretty good Big 12 team. And he didn't make any plays in any of those games. So I'm watching this, and I know he made a visit here. Now he's a local guy, so that's one of the reasons he made a visit. He doesn't even count against the 30, and he was probably at the local day a week and a half ago. But he's made about 4 or 5 other visits. Part of it is he ran good. He's a big guy and he ran good. But when I watched the tape, in fact, Olin and I were talking about it last week. I said, I just don't get excited about it, because when I saw the numbers, I said, okay, I got to take a look at this guy, because the numbers were what you want to see for a 3. And I just didn't see it at all on tape in those 3 games.
He has been climbing up some boards, according to some reports, but I guess that has to do because of his testing, no?
Well, yeah, but there's a misnomer there. Climbing up some boards. Who
knows that, right?
The team's telling you that? Why? Because he made visits? No, he's made visits because, you hit it right. He had good numbers, but you look at the tape and you go, wait a minute, there's something missing here with this guy too. Now, if he's available real late, that, or as a free agent, that's a different story. But to use, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th on him, I wouldn't. I didn't see the production in the games I saw. I'd have to see something totally different from what I saw. In fact, the next guy we'll talk about, I'll take him every day of the week over this.
And I don't think he was invited to the combine, which is can you say that's a damning thing for when a player? Okay.
No, there's 35, 38, 40 guys every year that don't go to the combine. They get drafted, and some get drafted high, and some play really good. So it's, you get voted on to go to the combine. Put it this way, when I was on the committee and I had to vote, I always went thumbs down, because if it's a guy I like or we like as a group, I don't want him at the combine. Why should everybody else see what I like?
Yeah.
If he's that question mark guy, I'm selfish.
I love it. All right. Is this the guy you were talking about? Myron Tunga Villalobos Amosa? Tell us why you like him.
He's a cousin of the Miami quarterback.
That too, yeah.
Hawaiian kid. Now, he was 270, 272 at his pro day last year. So 2020 season, he played inside, played some 3, played some 5, and he was about 290. This year, they moved him to the strong side end and had him drop down and play at around 270. And he ran good. He ran at the combine like 4.87. I don't have it right in front of me, but somewhere in that area, high 4.8s. He's very strong, got a great motor. He's all out, but he's not a guy, he is a 6th, 7th round preferred free agent type of guy that if he goes to the right team, he's going to be playing on Sunday. Not a doubt in my mind. This guy, number one, he's a leader. Now, part of the thing this year, not only is he playing a new position, he's playing on the edge at the strong side end. His dad dies 10 days before the season starts.
Oh my goodness.
It might have been 2 weeks, but he had to go home and to Hawaii, take care of business of that. And then he gets back in time for the opening game. But, you're playing with a heavy heart all year. And that's not easy to do. But this is a guy, I've watched his whole career. I really like him. He's a quality person. Character's way up here. And so, and he was at, Notre Dame guys are included in the local day. He was supposed to be at the local day, whether they never put a list out of who was there and who wasn't there. I had read on a Notre Dame site that he was going. Whether he actually went, I don't know. But, to me, that's a guy. If you don't get a guy early, he's a guy I'd want later as a preferred free agent, and he's going to make the team.
That gives me hope, with I started the show by saying, I'm worried about the defensive line and if there's a really good 3-tech there. But you're saying that, a guy like this guy, and I hate to pronounce his name without seeing my pronunciation.
Amosa.
How do you do that? Did you practice that?
Yeah, you got to.
Can we just call it
just look at it. Tag Loa.
Yeah, but the Draft Network, not the Draft Network, the Beast guy, Dane Brugler says it's Tunga Villalobos. Tongue. That first syllable is tongue. But in any case, it gives me hope that we can perhaps find a gem like that on day 3. And
there's probably others too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what good scouting is. I was hoping, in all honesty, that Eric Johnson was that guy. Okay. And because, like I said, the numbers jumped out, and then when I saw the tape, I said, no, I don't think so. But this guy, I've seen every single game this guy has played, and this guy is a football player, not a starter, but he's good enough. He's good enough to play in your rotation. He runs good enough to help a little bit on teams, and you're going to love him in your locker room.
Do you? Well, let me get this question out of the way because it interrupted my flow of thought. Is Greg hearing anything about the type of player Poles is looking to draft with the 2nd round picks?
He ain't saying anything.
Yeah, he's being very, very quiet. He's been very, very quiet.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I've talked to people around the league, and they're all saying the same thing. They're saying, we think they're going to take big people early. And part of that is because Poles is an offensive lineman, and Cunningham's an offensive lineman, and Flus is a defensive coordinator. So when you look at that, you say, that's what makes sense. But making sense and what really happens are two different things. They could be guessing totally wrong.
Jordan asked if you've had a chance to look at Jaden Peavy.
No.
All right. So let's move on now. We're going to look at some linebackers now. And we'll start with Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma.
Asamoah, I think you say it. It might be Asamoah. I don't think personally that linebacker is a high priority going into the draft.
Okay.
I mean, this guy would be a day 3 guy for me. Some of the draft nicks got him higher than that because he's very, very athletic. But he's, I think, again, remember I was talking instincts versus reactions?
Right.
As a linebacker, you've got to be instinctive. You've got to anticipate. And the best ones have great anticipation skills. This guy is a reactor. So he could be a step late getting to the play because of that. Very fast. He plays hard. He's got some coverage skills. He's effective as a blister, but most of the time when you see him coming, he's coming free. Because when somebody steps up to block him, he gets blocked. And he's not a real great step up and fill type guy because he's a little, he's not real strong. And, you can get a big offensive lineman, I think, is going to give him a hard time. So, I mean, would I take him late? Yeah. But because of his speed and stuff, and he's got coverage skills, he's probably going to go a lot sooner. Who a good comparison would be? If we say this right, E.A. Boonaway.
Yeah, Iggy.
Same type of guy. And he may never get any better than that.
Well, it's interesting that you just say that because the scout for an NFC team told NFL.com, good flashes and good speed, Big 12 offenses make it hard for linebackers to look good on tape, but they usually improve in the league. So my grading on him is a bit more lenient, and his grading has him as being an average backup or special teamer, much like
I agree with that. He's a backup special teamer who could be very good in that role. You got to be able to take on blocks. Roquan Smith is not very big. When he was a rookie, he's 225, 228 pounds, something like that, 6 feet tall. He can take on a block. He can take on a block of a 320-pound lineman and just stop him dead in his tracks. And get off that play and make plays. You don't see that from this guy. You see a big guy get on this guy, and he's dead in the water.
Cornelius Squalls in the chat room has been preaching O-line, 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 and he ends with building the O-line isn't sexy, but it's the key to building a solid football team. I agree with CS 100%. You got to win the line of scrimmage.
Well, here's what, getting back to the O-line thing. The one guy they signed from Minnesota, he's a backup. So
don't get it.
But they tried to make a big signing with Bates and give him big money. Didn't work. Because the Bills liked him as much as the Bears did and matched the offer. Where'd he play? Inside. He was a guard.
Yeah. Okay,
so what's that tell you? They haven't even tried to sign a tackle. So maybe, and so I'm thinking, well, maybe they like the tackles more than they're saying. Actions matter. Now, do I think they could draft a tackle? Yep. But, I'll tell you, there's some inside guys. When we did the offensive line, before I talked about it, there's some inside guys that I think are really, really good. And some to play, maybe play inside and outside. But I think that's one of the strengths of this draft. And that even in the third round, you're going to get a guy. Yeah, get lucky, but I think you're going to get a guy come in and start.
Okay.
On the offensive line. Inside. Tackle,
Right.
You better get him in the second round.
Gotcha. All right, here's a linebacker who I like a lot. It's Quay Walker out of Georgia. It seems like the Bears have the Bears probably have an area scout in that SEC land who likes Georgia players because Bears have picked quite a few Georgia players over the years.
He's a good football player.
Mm-hmm.
I said there's a pretty good chance he might go in the first round, or be gone before the Bears pick. Mm-hmm. I don't see them taking a linebacker unless it's a day 3 guy myself. 6'0", 240, 4'5", He's got a 32 vertical, a 10-2 broad jump. I said he's small, but he's small in size, well, average size, 240. I said he's only been 1 year as a full-time starter, but he jumps out on tape. He's got size, speed. He's very aware. He is instinctive. I got to read all my notes here. I can't read this.
You're like me. Sometimes I write stuff. I like, what the heck did I write there?
but I like the player, and I think he's going to be very, very good in the league. He's going to be a starter in the league. Look at it this way. Say the Bears taking a guy like this. If they hadn't signed Morrow, and then they still could sign Anthony Hitchens. And you and I talked about that off air. Mm-hmm. He came in for a visit. Obviously, Pole's been around there for a good part of his career. But, he made real good money last year. So he's looking for more money, and the Bears don't want to spend it. So until he figures out, wait a minute, the money's gone, he's going to be out there probably a little bit longer. Because, hey, it's a less than a week and a half before the draft, and he's still sitting on the street, and that's why, because he wants more money than teams are willing to give him at this time. So watch, he'll get signed tomorrow. But that they signed the Adams guy from Indianapolis, who's a special team backup guy. They signed Joe Thomas, who played for Flus in Dallas. Last team he was with, and he got hurt, was the Ravens last year. He only played a couple games last year, and then he got cut. But a guy that, had some production playing for Flus in Dallas, going to be a backup here. But you're going to see the Will and the Mike, and I don't know who's going to be which one because they're almost interchangeable, are going to be Roquan and Morrow. You can count on that. And then, there's my guy from last year that when he got a chance to play and he was a special teams phenom was Johnson, Caleb Johnson.
Right. Yeah, you're really high on him.
Yeah.
One other thought on Quay Walker. This was a tweet that Jim Nagy sent out. I think it was back in November. He wrote, "Why is Georgia's front seven so good? Because they have 245-pound linebackers that run like Quay Walker." So he is that sideline to sideline type of guy that every defense can use, and that makes him very, very intriguing. Now, he's unlikely to fall to round 2, though, right?
I think, well, they got Dean, too. I mean, Georgia was loaded. You just look at their thing. And, we talked about that defensive back, and said, well, hell, he played good because the front seven was so good, made it easy for the DBs. Mm-hmm. But this guy, at worst case, he goes in the first half of the second round. Depending on how teams value the linebacker position. Dean's going to go before him. The kid from Montana State, he's great. That's Urlacher, as far as I'm concerned. So there's some really good players. And the one guy, well, I don't know who do you got next?
Christian Harris.
Okay. I'll tell you what, this guy, what's interesting about this guy, played safety in high school. Alabama moves him to linebacker, and he starts as a true freshman, and he had never played the position. That tells you a little bit about the guy right
Absolutely.
there. 6004, 226, ran a 4.44. He's got great speed for a linebacker in today's game. He's good in coverage. He can play man. When you stick him in man coverage against a back, covers him like a glove. Does an excellent job. Got good ball skills, and he's explosive. When he hits you, he packs a wallop. I said his one problem, he's inconsistent as a tackler, not because he doesn't hit you, it's because he doesn't always wrap. And that you can see that all over college football. The overall tackling and even in the NFL is poor because they don't practice the darn thing.
Right.
He says he played, he's a junior coming out. He's played linebacker for 3 years, was a DB in high school. Here's another interesting thing. 226 at Indy, and he runs a 4.44. How about 4 weeks later, his pro day is 235?
What does that tell you, Greg?
You drop a bunch of weight to run real fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's the question. Trust me, teams look at that and they go, why? And a perfect example was Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd at the combine was 240-something pounds. At the Georgia Pro Day, he was 228.
Wow.
And that was only 3 weeks later. So guys do, and they've changed it around a little bit this year to try to prevent it. They drink gallons of this stuff before they weigh in. But see, now they're doing the weigh-in. They're doing it a little later, and they don't, they've figured out how to catch the cheaters, so to speak.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to our next linebacker. It is Micah Mcfadden. Indiana boy, 6'2".
No, I didn't do this guy.
Okay, my bad. I know you did this guy, Channing Tindall.
Tindall did him.
All right. A lot of people have been talking about him in the chat. They really like him.
When you look at his size, 6'1", 230, 4.47, it's what everybody's looking for in today's game. Very athletic, very fast. He has a little bit of straight line to him. He doesn't have that fluid change of direction that you'd want. And guy's never really been a starter. He's a backup because of how good the other guys are,
Yeah.
Walker and Dean, but he's pretty damn good in his own right. And I think he's a 3rd, 4th round guy who's going to come in and be a great special teams player while he's learning the pro game, and then maybe works into a starter 2 to 3 years down the road. Your typical growing pains for a rookie type guy that what you're expecting. You come in, you're a rookie, you learn to be a rookie, and you produce on special teams. If you got to play some downs, fine. But, he's got some negatives in his game. Another guy that's more reactive than instinctive. But, when you look at the traits and you look at how hard he plays, and he's got some coverage skills, he's a good player.
What do you think about what Tony the Pod Boss says here? He says, I honestly don't know about Georgia's linebackers. That D-line made these guys look great. No trouble with offensive linemen getting into the second level.
Well, there's some truth to that. But again, these guys made plays. They put themselves in the position. Yeah, those big monsters they had up front, occupied people and did free up things for the linebackers. But the linebackers got to be instinctive enough to still be able to make the play. It's not like they were making plays 10 yards downfield.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. One guy said he's violent. He is violent.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do you have any other players? The only other player I had.
Muma from.
Oh, Chad Muma. That's my mistake. I put up Mika because I got that confused. Chad Muma, the linebacker from Wyoming, and I can tell you a lot of people in the chat room love this guy.
I ditto. I said he plays the game the way it's supposed to be played.
Love that.
High intensity player. He's real good in coverage. This guy can plant and drive on the ball. He anticipates so well in coverage. And in this scheme, you got to be able to do that. He might be a guy that they could say, you know what? We don't need one, but he might be too good to pass up.
Mm. He's one of those guys. Yeah. Gotcha.
You know, I really like the player. The guys I didn't do Dean and a couple of the other guys, but this guy and Anderson from Montana State,
mm-hmm.
Those guys are good football players, and they're going to be great in the NFL.
Yeah. Jordan says he's a former safety, which is probably why he understands and recognizes so well that safety background.
Yeah, but it's just his transition is so good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's safeties that can't transition like this guy can. This guy, you know, he anticipates it. He drives on the ball. He gets a lot of interceptions. You know, just a hell of a football player.
Mm-hmm. And so if he's there at 39, you almost either pull the plug on him or no, you're bypassing somebody who's going to be a quality.
Well, he could be there. He could be there at 48 too. But yeah, you know, like I said earlier with Logan Hall, he might be in the discussion. That does, but the discussion's already going on.
Yeah,
and so you're making that decision as you're leading up to the draft.
Mm-hmm. It's with each passing day, the draft becomes more and more fascinating to me because the more I look at video of these guys and the more I read up on these guys, it's just going to be such a difficult decision for the Chicago Bears. I still kind of hold to my belief that the Bears should not trade down with those 3 picks they have on day 2, because I think you can find 3 plug-and-play players there, but I know a lot of people in the chat disagree with me. They're saying trade down and pick up as many picks as possible. But as you said earlier, it's not that easy. You just don't want to accumulate picks for the sake of accumulating picks. You have to have a plan. Where are the players?
You got to have a plan, and you don't trade quantity for quality.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if you know you can still get quality and trade down,
mm-hmm.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not, you know, you got to know your board, and you got to understand where you can get certain guys.
Right.
And once you get that, and then you feel very comfortable with it. See, I've said this before, and it's worth repeating. You're going to have a plan to go in, you know, going into the draft,
mm-hmm.
and you know you're going to anticipate things. You're going to hope for certain players. But you've got to expect the worst case scenario.
Mm.
And if you can accept the worst case scenario, you're in great shape.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Rock
it
Davis
never goes as planned.
Rock Davis wants to know what's goings on. I wish I nailed that. What's out the window there? Is your dog?
I don't know. I thought somebody was pulling up, but I must be wrong. Okay. All
right. Well, you keep it. You're one of those neighborhood watchers, right?
Well, my dog usually is, but he's sleeping behind me.
So. All right. So here we are. What is it? 8? No, it's 9 days.
10 days. 10 days.
Yeah, 9 or 10 days from the draft, and so. You say that the board will probably be finalized next week. That
most teams will finalize their board this week.
That's what I meant, and that next week is when calls start.
The Bears might be pretty much, you know, their guys were in early. Mm-hmm. They went home for Easter, get back today, and you've got, of course, the mini camp. which we talked about at the beginning of the show. So that's going to be very, very important. Then the next thing you do is your plan.
Okay.
Your strategery.
Yeah.
For as my rest in peace buddy Rush Limbaugh.
There you go.
Strategery. I got a funny story about that, but that's for another time.
Okay.
No, I'll tell it.
Go ahead.
When I was Rush Limbaugh was real good friends with my boss in New York, Tom Boyster.
Okay.
And at the time, Rush was living in New York, not in Florida. And so Tom would have him in the press boxes as a guest for a few games. And one of the games I was at, and I met the guy, and he gave me a copy of his book, and I said, well, I'm going to give it to my mother-in-law because she can't stand you. So he autographed it and writes a note to her and stuff. And then so she gets it on Christmas and throws it at me.
That's hilarious. Did she then see the autographed copy and then throw it at you a second time?
I don't know what happened to it. I mean, I don't have it. I mean, yeah.
Sounds to me like you're surrounded by liberals, Greg. Your mother-in-law, me, other people. That's hilarious. Okay, so the strategery is going on now, and so what does that entail when you say strategy? Building the strategy, is that like your trade philosophy? What players are
okay?
And that Mendoza line, so to speak.
Best way to describe it. During the football season, all week you practice and the coaches put a game plan together on both sides of the ball. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. That's what this is, setting your game plan.
Gotcha.
So, and going over everything. So you have a plan. This is what we want to do. And when you get hit, something happens and it doesn't land the way you want it to land. And, you got to have fallback guys. And again, that's where it goes back to what I said just a few minutes ago. If you can accept the worst case scenario, even better. If the worst case scenario is still pretty good, you're in great shape.
In a draft like this one, Greg, how many players approximately, and I know you haven't looked at tape of all the players and so forth, but your gut, how many players are above that line that says these guys are starters? And then and don't tell me how many are below that line. What I want to know is, how many players in this draft do you think have a really good chance to be plug and play players? Because the Bears need, 3 starters after day 2.
I think you can get 3, and after that, it's a bonus.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And right now you don't have a 4, but if you trade down, you might, have a 4. I'll tell you, if you haven't read it, and I tweeted this out this morning, Peter King's Football Morning in America, or whatever it's called, and Football Monday in America. Today's article was excellent. And he didn't give any names, but he interviewed a bunch of decision makers. And, it was just a quality read. But this draft is unique in that nobody knows, including the guys in the league. Nobody has a freaking clue who's going in the top 10.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's all over. You can come up with probably 18 guys that could go in the top 10. And he said this could be the first draft where you don't have a wide receiver or quarterback go in the top 10, even though wide receiver is very strong. And there's a lot of depth at the position. Just the way things look now. Now, will there be trades? Yeah. But one of the GMs said Yeah, but don't count it as being in the top 5. People aren't going to want to have to pay to get up there. Or if they do want to go up there, they're going to be offering a lot less than what was offered a year ago. Because what was there a year ago? Quarterbacks. And nobody sold on the quarterbacks this year. They might turn out to be great.
Right.
Okay. But nobody's like jumping up and down to get one, at least verbally right now. And so, who knows? I think personally 3 will end up going in the first round because of the value of the position, the need factor. But who the hell knows?
Yeah, nobody knows. Do you believe that that it's more about being lucky than being strategic and having good player evaluation? Obviously, luck is the board falling towards you.
Well, I've said before, George Young used to preach. He said, don't overreact to what's going on. The draft will come to you.
Okay.
We never made trades when George was there. And then the 1 year, I think I told this story last year, that we had the 5th pick in the draft and we weren't prepared.
Oh yeah, you did share this, yeah.
That, because the guys we had ranked 1, 2, 3, 4 went 1, 2, 3, 4, and we wanted one of those guys. They weren't prepared, the decision makers. That draft taught me more. That's where I came up with, you got to expect the worst case scenario. That was the worst case scenario, and they didn't have a plan for it.
Yeah.
And then George tried to get out of the pick, but it was too late. You got to, if you don't want to be in at 5, if you don't want it, you got to make calls next week. Early week, our guy might not be there. You can't just surprise people.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of the Aaron Donald draft when he was picked right before the Bears pick. I was so dejected, and then the Bears picked Kyle Fuller, and I was like, "Who?" Because I was just so invested. Oh yeah, he definitely was. But I was just.
I think I said it on here a while ago. Brian Aralt was Aaron Donald's agent, and so I was doing the first round at the Score. I think, there's Hub and Pompey, myself. Pat Manley may have been there. I don't remember. But, picks are coming off, and I think the Bears were 13 that year.
Yeah. And
Aaron Donald's still there. And so I send a text when there are 2 picks. There's the Rams and then the Bears. And during the Rams pick, I sent a text to Brian. I said, looks like the Bears are going to get Aaron Donald. And he said, no, they are. He's going to the Rams.
That is wild. I wish I would have known that. I wouldn't have cried in my soup for the next 3 days. Let's get to some customer chat comments or questions. Cliff says making draft projections would be a lot easier if we knew what the Bears really think of Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borom. I totally agree with that, Cliff. And because if they look at those 2 players as saying, you know what, these guys are as good as draft picks for us. These guys are like a 2nd and a 4th round draft pick. I know Borom was taken
5th round.
I know Borom was taken in the 5th, but
it was a high. It was a high 2.
Exactly. So, maybe they're looking at it that way, and so the offensive line need isn't as needy as a lot of us have made it seem. I know, the media and fans
didn't play good, and those guys. And to answer the question fairly, they're question marks,
right?
And actually, Tevin more of a question mark than Borom, because Borom played a lot and actually played pretty damn good. Okay, now,
very good.
Are they going to want him at 330 something pounds like Juan Castillo wanted? Nope. You're going to see him playing at probably 320 to 325. Now, at his pro day, Tevin was 317 pounds, ran a 501. Now, I'm going to say this about you. Look at Tevin Jenkins' measurables last year. They're good or better than any tackle in this draft.
Wow. Well, that's that.
When
That's
you look at the 3-cone, the vertical, you have like a 32-inch vertical.
That's amazing. That's
36 or 37 reps on the bench. 501 in the 40.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 7.6 3-cone. I forgot what the I think the 20 shuttle was 4.5 or something like that.
But he's a big man that can move, and that's what the Bears are looking for.
And so, people are locked on this. Well, he's a right tackle. And I'm going to go back to this thing I've been saying all along. Now, this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But, Slater was from Northwestern was the second offensive tackle taken last year, behind the kid from Oregon, and Penei Sewell. And Slater played 3 more games in college at left tackle than Tevin Jenkins did.
Mm-hmm.
Slater played 11, Tevin played 8, and Tevin would have played a whole season if the right tackle hadn't gotten hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the backup who had to come in couldn't play right tackle; he had to play left.
Right.
So Tevin said, "I'll play on the right side."
The team guy. Yeah.
So but it's you didn't see a lot. When he did play, it was sporadic.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go back, he didn't even have a handful of padded practices all last year. Once he came off of IR, they aren't hitting anybody in practice.
Exactly. At 2 or 3 practices at most. Yeah.
But give me a break. He was doing that, it was memory. So, let him go through the process. But I'll tell you, it was invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
The play time he got, he still got experience.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's, we got to find out what Chris Morgan, the new offensive line coach, feels.
Yep.
He's going to have a lot better feel Thursday night than he does right now.
Good to hear. Nomad asks, I love this question. And you've told us, that every team does their board differently, and you don't know exactly how the Bears are doing their board, but do you suspect that they have stars after certain names and saying, man, we got to get this guy. We got to try as much as possible to get this guy.
We never did. I can't tell you if we have scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
We play these games, not during the meetings. A lot of times we'd have, where Jerry and I would be in his office. This is after we're done with meetings, and we'd go till 9:30 at night or whatever, and we'd put scenarios. This is the guy we're taking to the first. This is the guy second. This is the guy third. This is the guy fourth. That's package round. And after that, it's all gravy. But this package versus this package versus this package versus this package, and then we keep going, and we'd argue it out. And then we'd bring the scouts in. Okay, which package do you like the best? And sometimes there might be a trade involved, a theoretical trade or whatever. And so that's what I mean by preparing. We were thinking the whole thing out. I want this guy in the first, but I want this guy. With all the research you're doing, I'm assuming this guy's going to be there in the first. And unless there's somebody I just can't say no to, all of a sudden is there. This is the guy I'm taking next.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's putting a plan together.
Another question here from Ravi, and he's asked, what's the story on the Ravens and Bears beef back in the day, the draft day?
That was the year after I left. Supposedly, now Ozzie was pissed off for about 2 years with Jerry, and Ozzie and Jerry were pretty good friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they took Gabe Carini.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to trade down because I think they thought Carini was going to be gone, and then all of a sudden he was there. So they didn't want to trade anymore, but they had already agreed to a trade with the Ravens, and the Ravens wanted Carini also.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ravens are probably going like this right now. Hey, we didn't get, he hurt his knee, and was never the same player. Because I'll tell you, his tape at Wisconsin was pretty impressive. But that's what it was. I wasn't in the room. That's what I heard. And the Ravens say that the Bears reneged on a trade.
And that will be in the book written by somebody sometime in the future. That's somebody needs to put together a book of draft day tales, or myths, and clear them up, because it's just so fascinating, the entire process. They made a movie called Draft Day. Unfortunately, I thought it stunk because it was so unrealistic. The general manager of the team is trading away for a quarterback he's never scouted. He's trading away multiple first-round draft picks on the day of the draft. He hasn't talked to his coach. He doesn't talk to anybody about it. He's just in the car, just decided to make a trade.
Hollywood, man.
Yeah, please make it at least somewhat believable.
Kevin Costner does a lot better job playing a cowboy than he does a football game.
That's right. And he makes better baseball movies than he does football movies. This has been another great episode, Greg. What do you want to do next week? It's we're going Tuesday, right? 2 days before the first round commences.
It kind of explain what's going on, and we might have an idea of what went on at minicamp. There could be some more veteran sightings between now and then. Right now, I'm thinking nobody who's going to jump out at you, but I could be totally wrong. I'm thinking they're waiting until the draft, and then, like I said, you could do it two ways. You could fill a hole now and pay for it, and then draft in another direction, or take the players and then see what holes you got and fill in. The needs. To me, everybody said, okay, we got to take care of the line. I'm saying right now, you got to get a corner. There has to be a corner sometime in day 2.
Thank you.
And unless you turn around and the one guy I wanted, Steve Nelson, he signed with Houston. And oddly enough, they play the same defense to play here.
Interesting.
And, you got the kid from who played for the Colts last year. Well, you know what? From what I understand, he's okay. He could play really good some days, and other days he could be a little disinterested. This is making calls with people who've been around him. And so, does Flus really want him?
That is the question.
But hey, you know what? He's still there.
And
he's probably still going to be there after the draft. And then if you don't get a corner, then you say, okay, that's what I got to do.
By the way, Jordan says that the corner you're referring to is Roger McCreary.
No, not. I don't think McCreary can play outside in this league. I think he's a slot corner.
And Jordan disagrees with you, as he has stated many times already. That's good stuff. And Nomad says this is his second favorite show in the barroom behind. It can't be behind the Dan and Aldo show. There's no way. Reevaluate that, Nomad. Thank you all for watching live. Greg, you are the absolute best at the business. I predict bigger things for you in the future. Network TV, NFL Network, and so forth. Just remember us little guys when you move on, okay?
Sure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Remember, the Double-A team tonight at special time, 6:45. It'll be Austin Gale of Pro Football Focus, along with Steven, talking about some of the analytics and a lot of Bears talk. So we'll see you then. And again, thanks for watching live, and make sure you send out the link to your friends and family for this show so they can see it on demand. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.